Free will, and do we have it? Back for some car musings. I'm actually like really digging this series now because you guys get to see me in all my glory. I just dropped my kids off at school. I probably don't have a bra on and definitely haven't brushed my teeth yet, glory. Kidding, I actually did brush my teeth this morning. Anywho, so I had an interesting interaction yesterday on the socials. Now let me preface this by saying that I have gotten really good, I'd say in the past couple of years, at not showing up at every party that I'm invited to. So I for those of you who followed me for any length of time, and some of you are even like friends with me on my personal accounts, I was invited to many fights during the pandemic, and I showed up for every single one of them, and I showed up armed with facts and statistics and logic, and there was not a lot of that, not a lot of desire for that during the pandemic, right? The COVID crazies really just wanted to, you want to kill my grandma, and that's kind of the end of the discussion. So I have kind of, that whole debacle just really numbed me to the whole online debate thing. And so I tend to scroll past a lot of these posts now, and I'm not talking about COVID. This is totally related to astrology, but I'm just saying, kind of in general. So, but yesterday I had, I was doing my scrolling, and somebody who I respect very much, she's a practitioner in this space, and she has great opinions about, she and I are very like-minded when it comes to the COVID stuff. She posted something that was along the lines of, and I'm paraphrasing because she was much more eloquent than I am, that, she doesn't really believe in retrogrades. The powers that be or whatever have basically told us that this is what goes on during a retrograde and this is how we're supposed to feel. And she doesn't feel like, she should have to buy into that narrative, right? Which is, I get it, like a very respectful position to take there. And this is somebody who's, versed in astrology. She's not ignorant of astrology. And, so we commented back and forth a little bit. And I think what we ultimately distilled it down to was this idea of free will. And I see this a lot, right? This is not me picking on this person. This is just the most recent example that I've seen of this particular argument, right? It's just a different iteration of basically the same argument, where people come to me all the time who kind of, they don't believe in the predestination of astrology. They have a very hard time reconciling the idea that the planets dictate what's happening, because free will, right? And I get that, right? And so I always feel sad when people are engaged in this kind of like black and white thinking, because as you know, most of life exists in the gray. And so people who think in very black and white terms do not tend to fare very well. Or if they do, they're kind of just like in their own little bubble and whatever. So I want to talk about this because like I said, I see it a lot. So this idea of free will versus predestination. Do I believe that the stars or the planets or whatever dictate life on Earth? No. I don't. I don't think that it's that. I don't think it's that easy, to be perfectly honest. It's we're in far too complex of a matrix for that to be the case. And what I ultimately reiterated, this is my position. This has been my position, and what I ultimately reiterated to her was that first and foremost, with regard to retrogrades, there is no set way to feel during a retrograde. And in fact, I think that a lot of that, there's a lot of misinformation that goes on during retrogrades, right? Mercury retrograde is going to fuck up your whole life. That shit drives me crazy when people say that. And I do my best to kind of like campaign for like truth in the matter of what happens during Mercury retrograde and all planet retrogrades, to be honest, because, they're not here to mess up our lives. They're here to turn us introspective on something that's going on, right? Because we can't be forward motion all the time. And so when the planets go retrograde, it's an opportunity to reflect and kind of turn inward. And the people who suffer are the ones who try to keep pushing forward on things that are not meant to be pushed forward upon at that time, right? So I kind of went through that. As far as the free will thing goes, it's more, I use the analogy of a clock or the seasons, right? I think of astrology as kind of like that, right? As like a backdrop. So the analogy of a clock, let's say that it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon. for somebody who's in school or in the workforce, chances are very good that at or sometime around 12 o'clock noon on any given day, especially a weekday, they're going to be eating lunch, right? Or they're certainly going to, maybe they're still working, or maybe they've already eaten lunch, but they're going to be up, they're going to be kind of at the peak of their day, they're going to be getting stuff done. Highly unlikely for most people, right, that they're going to be taking a nap or eating breakfast, right? Or, who knows? There's a whole bunch of things that are less likely to be happening at 12 noon than not, right? Or, maybe a more apt or more clear metaphor would be like seasons, right? And this is in fact the, the example that I used with her, right? You can decide that you want to go skiing. That's free will, okay? I decide I want to go skiing. I'm using my free will to decide that. But it's June. Calendar says it's June, and I live in the northern hemisphere, right? Now I can still decide that I want to go skiing, but the backdrop, right? The seasons, nature, the natural cycles are kind of like, you really think that that's the best idea? And if I have the resources, right, and I have the time, then I can absolutely, book a flight to somewhere in the southern hemisphere. I can get my skis on, right? Like I can make it happen. It's not going to be as easy as if I just waited until January. It's not going to be, as smooth. And there may be consequences. I may suffer consequences, right? Maybe I didn't have as much vacation time as I thought. Maybe I spend a ton of money flying down to the southern hemisphere and I have this great ski vacation, and then I come home and something in my house floods, and I now have this major house expense that I wasn't anticipating. And so now, because of the vacation that I didn't need to take but wanted to and had free will and did so, now I'm suffering financially, right? This is exactly the type of backdrop that astrology provides, right? You can decide, and I say this all the time, you can have the best stars in the world for love, money, getting a new job, right? Friendships, whatever, right? Anything that astrology can predict, which is basically everything. You can have the best stars, you can have great energy, you can have the wind at your back energetically for whatever, and you can sit at home and decide, I'm not going to do this, right? I'm not like, this happens all the time where like you have great stars to go and meet somebody new, right? A love relationship. But you, for whatever reason, decide you're going to sit on your couch, you're going to avoid social media, you're going to avoid dating apps, which I recommend anyway, but so you don't work the energy, right? And so you don't end up with the thing. There's no punishment for that, right? And it doesn't negate the fact that the natural cycles were in the background ready to support you. And it also doesn't negate the fact that if you exercised your free will in a way that was contrary to the natural cycles, that you may suffer consequences for doing so, right? So that's, kind of my spiel and on the interplay between free will and predestiny, I guess, if you will, right? Like neither one of them is absolute. They both exist together, and it's up to us to kind of figure it out, right? So yes, you have free will, but what are you going to do? You're going to go all Cartman and be like, right? Like I'm fucking authority or whatever. I was a South Park fan at one point, but I can't remember what the exact quote is. Respect my authority, right? Where you just kind of, basically are like, fuck nature, fuck God, fuck the universe, whatever, right? Like, and just pretend that they don't exist. But at the same time, I don't think it pays to fall down the other end of the rabbit hole and be like, well, nothing I do matters because the planets are dictating everything I say and do anyway. So yeah, just some food for thought there. I'm gonna go get some coffee now. Deuces.